We shall now go on to our third speaker, Dr. Vaishnavi, who's our consultant glaucoma, pediatric and neuro-ophthalmology at the Coimbatore branch of Eye Foundation Group of Hospitals. A brilliant, hardworking surgeon, highly appreciated and lauded at her workplace. She has another different thought-provoking case to generate a lot more discussions. On to you, Vaishnavi.
Thank you, madam. I thank Dr. Chitra, madam, and Dr. Muralidhar sir for giving me this opportunity. So my case is a case of a 35-year-old male patient who complains of headache for the past 1 month. Apparently, he just came here for glass prescription.
Share. You not share the screen. First, open your presentation, doctor, and then do the screen share on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Please put it in presentation mode.
Yeah, one second.
Ma'am, you need to close the above two bars first.
Now is it visible?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, just close the above two bars first. Yes, all good.
Now is it visible?
Yes,
Vaishnavi, go on.
Okay, yeah. So mine is a 35-year-old male patient who came with complaints of headache for the past 1 month. There is no history of any vomiting, trauma, tinnitus, diplopia, or defective vision. Vision both eyes were 6/6. Intraocular pressure in the right eye was 12 and left eye was 11. Color vision both eyes was 21/21. Pupils were brisk. There was no relative afferent pupillary defect. Extraocular movements were full, free, and painless. Anterior segment was unremarkable. And blood pressure measured twice was around 200/120 millimeter mercury. Fundus examination showed disc edema with hemorrhages and cotton wool spots suggestive of hypertensive retinopathy. Field's right eye showed rim defects, whereas left eye showed a few central scotoma. And OCT showed thickened retinal nerve fiber layer thickness in both the eyes. And OCT of enhanced depth images showed inward deflection of retinal pigment epithelium towards the vitreous, suggestive of papilledema in both eyes. After consultation with our anesthetist, as the patient was stable and asymptomatic, we gave him sublingual antihypertensive drugs and referred him for MRI scan center because the fields in the left eye showed a central scotoma and we shouldn't be missing out any gross abnormality. And we put a word to the treating radiologist as not to make the patient wait. So finally, they did a MRI, which showed multifocal, scattered, large T2 hyperintense lesion in the periventricular and deep white matter involving both the temporal, frontal, parietal lobes and also in the left cerebellar white matter. There is no enhancement after contrast administration, and optic nerves and the extraocular muscles appeared normal. And there is no demyelination noted in the cervical or in the thoracic cord. So from this, what could be the provisional diagnosis? It could be just a case of a malignant hypertension, or could be any case of a demyelination, like acute demyelinating encephalomyelitis, multiple sclerosis, or MOG. And the third differential diagnosis could be a paraneoplastic lesion. So multiple sclerosis, they have multiple lesions which are peripheral, and these are typically ovate-shaped lesions which are perpendicular to the ventricular wall. And these are juxtacortical enhancing lesions. Typically, they have the isolated U fiber layer lesions in the corpus callosum and usually affects the temporal lobe, but brainstem and cerebellar lesions can also be present. Next is acute demyelinating encephalomyelitis, which is an immune-mediated demyelination, most commonly following vaccination or infection. These are usually bilateral, asymmetrical, and these are very large enhancing lesions present in the white matter. And it involves the subcortical and deep gray matter of the basal ganglia and the thalamus. So what are the points for ADEM? There are hyperintense lesions which are present in the periventricular lesions and in the deep white matter. Temporal lobes are also involved, but the cortex is not involved. The points against ADEM is there is no demyelination in the spinal cord, there is no corpus callosum involvement, and there is no enhancement after contrast. So viral trigger is usually seen in ADEM. It is unknown in multiple sclerosis. The gray matter involvement is usually subcortical in ADEM and it is juxtacortical in multiple sclerosis. It's usually monophasic in ADEM and the clinical course is usually multiphasic in multiple sclerosis. And you get large enhancing white lesions in the white matter, whereas in multiple sclerosis, you get more of a juxtacortical lesions. The third point could be a paraneoplastic lesion, which usually occurs secondary to indirect effects of malignancy or remotely to primary. Usually it occurs from aberrant hormonal regulations related to proteins by neoplasm. So these are seen as a hyperintense lesion in cortical, gray matter, and in white matter. So these findings appear little atypical, and so limited screening of the abdomen revealed incidental left renal mass. So as the patient was asymptomatic, we referred him immediately to a multispecialty hospital, and lumbar puncture and CSF analysis was not done because he didn't have that much of headache and he was not at all symptomatic. And so they did a CT scan abdomen, which showed a hypermetabolic enhancing soft tissue lesion in the lower pole of the left kidney, suggestive of renal cell carcinoma. And there is no feature of any FDG uptake noted in the abdomen. So which was further confirmed with PET scan, which showed mild hypermetabolic enhancing lesion in the lower pole of the kidney, suggestive of renal cell carcinoma, which is evident and without any metastasis anywhere else in the body. So he underwent a left radical nephrectomy, and the biopsy showed clear cell carcinoma of grade 1 and stage 1. So 1 month he came to us for follow-up, and you can see the vision is 6/6 and color vision is normal, and there's gross regression of papilledema in both the eyes. And this is a OCT finding. You can see before the surgery and this is after the surgery, which shows gross reduction of papilledema in both the eyes. And 6 weeks later, vision was maintained at 6/6, color vision was normal, and BP was around 140/90 on a single antihypertensive agent. So disc edema is more common with malignant hypertension, uremia, and dialysis patient. And patients with chronic renal disease have comorbidities and additional risk factors which can predispose to papilledema. And mass lesions can cause increase in the intracerebral volume, thereby causing papilledema. And prevalence of optic swelling is more with chronic renal disease. So renal cell carcinoma, it's 70% is incidental finding, and 10% of renal cell carcinoma exhibit classical symptoms. And it constitutes about 3% of adult malignancies, and usually occurs in men in the age group of 30 to 60 years who are mostly hypertensive. The classical triad of hematuria, flank pain, and mass is absent in our case. So it is best screened by contrast-enhanced triple-phase CT. There are few syndromes associated with the renal cell carcinoma. Usually these syndromic association we should suspect when the patient is less than 40 years, when they have a bilateral involvement, when they have multiple lesions, and if there is involvement of other organs like liver or pancreas. So finally, why this case? So headache was a presenting feature, and there are no renal related symptoms, and there is no evidence of metastasis in the brain, and papilledema is attributed to the high blood pressure at presentation. And atypical features in MRI lead to renal screening and appropriate life-saving treatment. Thank you. So at this juncture, I would like to introduce Dr. Murugan. He's a consultant radiologist from Clarity Scan Center, who was the person behind this case and whose enormous gray cells and eagle eyes helped to arrive at a prompt diagnosis and to initiate life-threatening treatment. Any doubt? I think Dr. Murugan will be here for a couple of minutes. He'll be happy to take the questions.
Thank you. Thank you for
Before
the
you
invitation.
start on your neuro-ophthalmology discussion, one very basic question I had to ask was, how was it that such an acute rise of blood pressure? There were no typical AV changes or silver eye appearance seen on the fundus of this patient. And
No, it was very acute, ma'am. So I think in acute phases, you don't get the typical AV changes.
I think that's very right. In actual fact, most of the cases of hypertension with disc swelling I've seen have had very little changes in the retina otherwise. There were some here. And I think the reason for that is that in chronic hypertension, the medial hypertrophy actually protects the capillary bed. And so patients who get malignant hypertension tend to have pheochromocytoma, or of course the classic is in pregnancy, with preeclampsia. So they tend to get disc swelling. They also tend to get more of these changes in the brain, which result from the same problem. There's no protection of the capillary bed. I'd be interested to ask the radiologist if there was any resolution of those cerebral changes after treatment.
Dr. Murugan, can you tell us what made you think towards imaging? And
Okay. Anyway, first of all, thanks for the invitation, madam, for this discussion. Now, this patient actually, I would say honestly, was a little lucky because he landed up when one of our free days. So when we did the MRI, in fact, MRI brain was what was asked for. The findings were a little atypical, as Dr. Vaishnavi pointed out. ADM comes closest, but then ADM we see in children usually after a viral illness. Typical history will be there. In adults, we don't see that much of ADM. So multiple sclerosis was again ruled out because they were all quite big ones. And contrast, NAM study ruled out metastatic lesion and granulomatous lesions. So I was kind of clueless as to what to give as a diagnosis. So sometimes as radiologists, when we are clueless, we try to screen and get some help. So that is how we ended up screening the spine. It so happened when we screen the spine, the technicians take some localizer images, just for the sake of planning. And the patient, I must again say that I was lucky enough that I was able to see the lesion. Otherwise, in about 50% of the times, we tend to overlook the localizer because we don't see the localizer image because that's purely for the technician. That is how it was detected. Even that time, I did not think about paraneoplastic because paraneoplastic syndrome in brain usually presents in the limbic system. Typically, we have seen in small cell carcinoma of the lung, and the presentation is usually along the hippocampus, parahippocampus, amygdala. And this was again atypical. So even at that time, even after seeing the lesion, I could not connect and give a proper diagnosis of paraneoplastic syndrome. I'm happy that finally it turned out to be, and patient is better now.
And follow up, was there resolution of the brain abnormalities?
Yeah, in fact, I was also curious to know. In fact, we can do a complementary MRI if the patient comes for a follow-up, and we can document. Yeah.
Anybody has anything else to add?
So, Dr. Murugan, do you think it's a variant of a hypertensive encephalopathy?
No, because in the so-called, we say PRES, that is posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome, usually that involves the parieto-occipital region.
Yes. Typically
the occipital lobe. Here it is all around in frontal. So we have seen any number of PRES lesions, usually typically, post-eclampsia, but this was not like that. Yes. It was typical like an ADAM. Only difference was an adult patient.
Okay, so if we look at the pathogenesis, what I understand here is that a patient presented with very elevated blood pressure. And in a young patient, the etiology, the first thing that comes to mind is logically a renal problem, which is causing the elevated blood pressure. So even if he had not had an eye examination and had not had an neuroimaging, invariably he would have gone or would have been referred to the physician to look for a renal cause, and which they would have done an ultrasound and located the same lesion.
Yes.
It so happened that he presented with papillary edema or hypertensive retinopathy, and went the other way around, but through neuroimaging, and then the kidney problem was detected.
The ACT finding was interesting because there has been some discussion over the years about raised intracranial pressure in malignant hypertension. But of course, you didn't do a lumbar puncture, so you're not going to know. But generally speaking, it's not considered to play a part in the development of the disc swelling, which is, I think, is due to capillary level ischemia, and it leaves the disc very vulnerable to infarction. David Taylor wrote up a series of children who'd been given acute antihypertensive treatment, and if you lower the blood pressure too quickly, the optic nerves can infarct. So that's something to bear in mind.
Thank you very much for all the discussions and the thought.